Our first class is called Course Introduction, and that's a very apt title for a course introduction, don't you think? So when we talk about a course introduction, you've already seen or participated in our first hangout, which we discussed the core question that I had that brought me to this course, and that's kind of the beginning of the introduction, and it's important that you're aware of how this came about for me. But the course introduction will also be more formal. We'll talk a little bit about the syllabus and how we're going to get there, and the plan for the next little while that we're going to be spending together learning. The beginning, it starts off a little bit, I should say, slow, and the reason for that is because we're getting acclimated to kind of a new way of thinking about things for most people, and because of that, we want to make sure that everybody's on board before we continue on to the real work that's going to be involved with the Jewish parts of this. But we're going to start with a little bit of groundwork, and we're going to talk first about, just after today's class, we're going to talk about self-awareness for a little while. And the reason that's important is because in order to do this, you need to have self-awareness. In order to do this at all, you need to have consciousness. You need to have the ability to think about your own life in a way that reflects that you know exactly what you're doing, or at least you have some idea of what you're doing. And it's sometimes hard for people to get there. We'll help get there for everybody. I assume if you've taken the initiative to join this class that you have a healthy dose of self-awareness already, which is good. It's a good start. And we're going to help you develop that, and we're going to help you work the Jewish parts of your life out through the lens of self-awareness. So we're going to spend a little bit of time in the beginning about self-awareness. And then once we're self-aware about ourselves, then we need to start talking about self-awareness about Judaism. Okay? We call this conscious Judaism. Conscious Judaism is the kind of life where a person is self-aware about their religious behavior and experiences. And this is unique because for most people that are religious, the beauty of religion for a lot of people is that you don't have to think about things, that you now have somebody that tells you exactly what to do and how to do it so that you don't have to think about things. And that's for some people the attraction of religion. And instead of having to kind of figure out every single thing, is that moral or is it immoral? Is it ethical? Is it unethical? Is it the thing I should do? Is it the thing I should not do? You have a religion that tells you exactly what you need to know to answer those questions. And that is for some people very valuable and important. And because of that, religion is attractive to them. We're trying to find a religion that does not have that feature or bug, depending on your position. My position would be that's a bug. I can't do that. I need to have a life where I can feel empowered to be conscious about things that I'm doing and choose to do based upon that, and not feel that I am a slave to a specific way of thinking that's already been predetermined. So the first thing we have to do to understand conscious Judaism is to find out, is this allowed? Or are we trying to are we treading upon dangerous waters, or are we doing something that is, I guess you would say, sanctionable within the halachic rubric? Is it something that a person that follows halacha, a person that follows Jewish law, a person that cares about following Jewish law could deem appropriate or acceptable or even praiseworthy or laudable? Is it something that is valuable, or is it something that it's like a position that we have to say is either not acceptable, or it's something that is, even though it's not acceptable lechatchila, ab initio, it's okay if we have to do it, then we'll concede it. So we're going to talk first about how to understand within the halachic framework of what Judaism, even Orthodox Judaism, that is the most fundamentalist of the major religious Jewish denominations, which is something that kind of it's archaic and I abhor the whole thing, but we have to deal with reality, and reality is that there are such things. So we're going to discuss if and how we can do this within the traditional frameworks of how Jewish law operates. And because of that, we're going to have to talk about what's called Masorah. That's why part one, I would say, of the actual course is Masorah. And this is going to talk about how the Jewish tradition has been developed over time. When you start with the revelation at Sinai and what was given then, and talk about how we interpret that story and what the process is for deciding how and what we should do as Orthodox Jews, because I'm an Orthodox Jew. But it's interesting for people that are not Orthodox Jews, because you will see that there is subjectivity even within Orthodox Judaism. And that subjectivity is the key to everything. So that first part of this, called the Masorah, has a class called Subjective Judaism, where we will talk about this at length and give a firm and very complete understanding of how one can legitimately say that Orthodox Judaism, but all Judaism for sure, has subjectivity involved, and where the limits of that subjectivity take you, and then what the consequences would be of leaving within that subjective group. So once we have that down, we're in good shape, because now we can start talking about subjective Orthodox Judaism, subjective Judaism, conscious Judaism, and I've divided, as I mentioned in the initial hangout, I've divided things into three basic categories. We have times, things, and people. And we begin with times. Times is easy to begin with because it's something that comes up all the time, no pun intended. But we start with Shabbos or Shabbat. I'm just going to say whatever comes to my mind. I don't have a preferred pronunciation, but if you have one that's preferable to you, I apologize in advance for not using yours. But the first thing that we're going to talk about is Shabbat because it happens every week, and it's also what most people to be considered the baseline for determining whether somebody is like an observant Jew or not. Do they observe the Shabbat? So you'll have some readings, and I will have a lecture for you about Shabbat. Okay. The next thing we have are holidays. Jewish holidays come up all the time, and they are celebrated by more people than we sometimes think. And because they are celebrated so often, there's possible ways that we can learn from how we approach the religious experiences of holidays. And because people practice these things, and they are pretty much the highlights of the Jewish year in most ways, it's possible that we can make them into more meaningful, more powerful experiences for you. And that's the goal. Okay, so after Shabbos and Yom Tov, we may stick in a few things in times other than those, but those are the main ones. You know, if I was doing a more comprehensive class about Judaism in general, we'd probably do Rosh Chodesh, the new month, and the counting of the lunar calendar and the implications of all that. But again, we're here for you, and we're going to try and figure out how we can make your Judaism more meaningful and more relevant. Move on to things, which is the next category. And the biggest thing is, for Jews, always food. And therefore, we begin with kashrut, or kashrus, and we're going to talk about the meaning of kashrut and how we can learn from it and what we can gain from it, and basically learn how to be aware of the different values that kashrut can teach us. Okay, so that's the first one. It's going to be about food. The next one will be about modesty, which is really about clothing, right? So things, clothing, and how we dress. And the reason we're talking about this is because it's something that a lot of people are concerned with. They care about it. If you're Orthodox, it's like the most basic thing in your life at all times. If you're a woman especially, and if you're a man, usually it just means that you're consciously aware of it because either you have sisters, daughters, a mother, or just aware of it because you need to be careful about what you see and how you see it. So we will talk about the rules of modesty and how to see those through this same lens. And there is plenty to talk about when we do talk about modesty, but it's not necessary to have, like, let's say a class on every single thing that we could possibly come up with. We're trying to pick the biggest things that are like in the consciousness of people who are practicing Judaism. And although modesty is technically a very small thing compared to like big things that are in the Torah and things that are more prominent, in social and cultural Judaism, Orthodox Judaism especially, it plays a prominent role. So I think it's worthwhile to focus on it. Okay, we are then going to do the third category of my division of Jewish stuff, which is called people. And in people, we will have the first person we need to talk about is yourself, and also the way you deal with other people and the way that you talk to other people and the way you are behaved towards other people. And I call this thing about people, a lot of it has to do with kind of the way that I approach repentance, and the beauty of the mitzvah of repentance, teshuvah. It's really quite amazing, and we'll get to it when we get to it. You'll see what I mean. But really, that lens is the lens through which I would describe every single interpersonal relationship that you have, whether it's with you and your parents, your children, your siblings, your friends, your colleagues, your coworkers, and anybody else you meet, and even just anonymous random people, and yourself and God. So that it will be the lens through which we talk about relationship and people. And the reason this is important is because Judaism has a lot to say about this, and these are things that come up all the time. So if you're going to live a conscious Judaism, then wouldn't it be great if we had a framework through which we can use Judaism to improve our relationships? So that's what that's all about. Then we will talk about gender roles, which is also about people. It's about men, it's about women, it's about fathers, mothers, it's about husbands and wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, all those issues that matter, and also communal Judaism, which is part of this as well. And that refers to, like, the place in the synagogue and communal leadership and rabbinic duties and other ritual leadership roles. If we get through all that, and we will, I shouldn't say if, we will get through all that, we will have completed my kind of overview of practical Judaism that comes up all the time. Now, therefore what? What's the upshot? The therefore what is that we are trying to now empower you and build this life. And I will give you as much of the much advice as I possibly can. Talk about, how to frame your choices and the way you decide to do things and how to live your Jewish life that you've been given through this course in a special section called Empowerment. You will also have a very important assignment at that point. Then we end the course with what I've called the start of the rest of your life, and it's going to take stock of what we've learned, and it's going to have some of your ideas that you've contributed, and I will be available for all those kind of like parting thoughts types of things, and we'll have a way to send you all off with as much information and as much power as you can possibly have to make your life the best Jewish life possible. Okay. Through each of these lectures and courses and sections along the way, you will have the assignment. You'll have a quiz, which is just to make sure you watch the class. You'll have an assignment, which is where you will think about something that is related to this kind of either the lecture or the discussion or whatever. And it's kind of to demonstrate your ability to kind of put into action what we're talking about. And we'll also have discussions. It's not that you can't, that the discussions are not important. The discussions are super important, and they're not even minor. They're major. The discussions are the chance that we're going to have to kind of talk about the stuff that we've been learning and experiencing. And it's not good enough if you only attend, or you only are able to complete the stuff by watching and by participating through your submissions and through your exams. But it's not going to be sufficient. It's not like I need to give you a grade for classroom participation, so I'm asking you to participate. I'm saying that the best way to learn this is to discuss it and talk about it and be powerfully engaged in the process. It's more about the way that you do this than the things that you learn. I will get to that just in a moment. Because of that, I'm asking you to please try and make sure that you can attend the Hangouts. If the time that we've chosen, 9 p.m. Eastern on a Tuesday night, is not good for you, or it won't ever be good for you, just send me an email and we'll try and find a time that is good for you and everybody else. We'll make it work, and we want to make it work. So please be aware of that and help us to make it work. Okay, so you've watched the course introduction. You are now, if you haven't been looking along in the course outline, following along as I've done this, that's fine. I just want you to read the course outline. I'm going to give you a short little quiz about the stuff that we talked about in this little course introduction lecture. And after that's over, after you've done that exam, then it will unlock for you the next part of the course, which is what's the point of all this? And that's a short lecture which I will be talking about the difference between passive learning and participatory learning, and the difference between trying to get information, the difference between and trying to learn a process. So that's your next step. Read that course outline, take that quiz, and then by the time you're done with that, hopefully you'll be ready to do the next lecture, and then we'll have our next hangout on Tuesday night of this upcoming week. Again, this is your chance. Please let me know if there's a chance that you can't make these on Tuesday night regularly. If you miss one or two, it's okay, but I just don't want to schedule something that you're never going to be able to attend. And let's make sure that we can be accommodating to as many people as possible. Thank you to all of you who did manage to attend our first hangout. It was a difficult process, but now we're good. We know what to do. So I look forward to seeing you all next Tuesday night. Enjoy this lecture. Hope you have enjoyed this so far, and I'll enjoy the next lecture. What's the point of all this lecture? As soon as you've done the other assignments. All right, have a good one.